You ready for the Easter Bunny? Easter Bunny's
Always
coming.
ready for the Easter Bunny. He's a little scary though. I've always seen little kids like freaking out about him. Right, we got the spinning wheels. I mean, some of those costumes, man, the Halloween costumes and whatever from like the 19 like
Yeah,
30s, horrifying stuff of
yeah,
nightmares.
for sure. I don't think it's like Santa where you get to see Santa on occasion, you know what I mean? But like it's more of you appreciate the Easter Bunny because he leaves things for you and he's already gone. You don't have to deal with all the mess of, "Hey, what's up? Let me give you the annual report." Because I agree, a little scary. But here we
Yeah.
go. We're already off the track before we get going. Looks like things are ready to rock and roll. He's Nick Kendall. I'm Luke Patterson. This is MHI. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We got a jam-packed show, and man, Nick, it's insane. The draft is a couple weeks away now. Without this weekend, a week. It's rapidly approaching, and we're about to figure out who the Broncos are going to start selecting in terms of rookies. I'm excited. You're excited. How are you feeling, man?
I'm doing well. I'm ready for the draft to get here. At some point, you get kind of exhausted of the constant, what are they going to do, blah, blah, blah. Not that I do want to say it's kind of how do I put it? I'm excited for it to come and go. But that said, once it's gone, I'm going to miss it terribly. Like the anticipation is so good. That said, it's pretty drawn out. But then once the draft is over, it's kind of like, well, now we might as well get to frickin' September, October for real football, because after that, not much is that interesting from where I sit. Now, obviously, things are a little bit different with Russell Wilson coming to Denver. I'm going to be eating up everything I possibly can, but still, after the draft, it's get me to the regular season ASAP.
Yeah, it's a bizarre time of year, to be sure. I mean, we're kind of in that time, and I did some writing this last week, and it was weird because not a lot of it was draft related, if I'm going to be honest, Nick. I mean, I think one piece was, and that was CSU's with CSU Trey McBride going
Mm-hmm.
with Mel Kiper, and then you did a piece also alluding to that. So, I mean, and the rest were like journalistic pieces on the
Mm-hmm.
stories, what's going on with the Broncos this week. But it's that weird time before the calm, before the storm. The Broncos don't have a first pick, so I think Broncos country is kind of bracing themselves for what's going to feel like an odd draft, but it's going to be worth it come training camp when the hill is jam packed full of families just trying to get their glimpse on number 3, Russell Wilson. It's for
Yeah.
real. It's absolutely crazy, man. So we've got that going for us, but we've got a really exciting show ahead. Scott's on the ones and twos. We appreciate everything he does for us. And just like our guy, Dylan Von Arks. What's up, Broncos country? Make sure you hit that like button on the way in and subscribe, please, if you haven't already. We're going to be joined by Pro Football Focus's own Kendall Valenzuela. She used to cover the Broncos during their championship run here with Super Bowl 50. Not that I'm jealous or anything, but she'll be joining us here in a little bit to talk about a piece that I covered from Pro Football Focus about Baron Browning, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a stellar player last year. And let's say hello to some of the folks in the channel before we get there. Paul joined in really, really early before the show even started. Want to say what's up to Paul. Thank you for joining MHI on your Saturday night. And then Dale was shortly behind him. What's up, Dale? We're going to put this question in the chat as well when the time comes and Kendall joins us at about 6:15 because obviously the subject is Baron Browning. He had a stellar rookie season, Nick. I mean, absolutely stellar.
Yeah.
I was banging the table for him in the second round. You were talking me off the ledge. No, you don't have to take that second round pick on him. He'll be there in the third. He was, just like you said. And I'm just happy we got him, man. He's a
Yeah.
hell of a young man, a hell of a player. And I just, not enough can be said about number 56. I'm glad he's got that number too, by the way.
Yeah, it's a good number, a good player. I'm excited to see what he can do this year, and I'm excited to see what Kendall has to say about it, him as well. But there's no real new information other than earlier there was some discussion about Baron Browning moving from the off-ball second level linebacker spot to some more edge reps this season. Some of that might just be solidifying the room some, helping the room some that your top 2 edge rushers have a lot of injury history, and some of it could just be versatility. Maybe it's Ejiro Evero. The Rams the last few seasons have played linebackers at a rate I don't think any other team has a lower rate than the Rams at linebackers on the field. And I'm not including the edge rushers as the linebacker, the second level linebackers. And in order to get Baron Brennan on the field, you might have to use some reps where he's rushing off the edge because there's not a spot for him at the linebacker position. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. The more things you can do, the better. But I really hope they don't Justin Hollins him to an extent where, the linebacker spot is very instinctual. There's a lot of processing. There's a reason that there's more first round bust at the off ball linebacker spot than honestly any other position in football right now. It's because the processing and the instincts are first level before the athleticism and everything. And you're drafting guys based on athleticism and size that can't read in key defenses or offensive lines to save their life. Those guys end up being busts. So big reason I want to take day 2 linebackers on the whole, but Browning, you don't want to give him too much. That said, Josie Jewell's back. That Jonas Griffith is back as well. He's going to get a little bit of competition. I'm excited about Browning this season. I think has a chance to be a really good player for the Broncos. I don't know about a superstar, but with his athleticism and what he flashed last year, could be really, really, really good.
You got to wonder if they're compensating. We will ask Kendall about if the move to edge or outside linebacker, I should say, not edge, but if the move to outside linebacker for Baron Browning, if it sticks, is it there to support those injured pass rushers coming back from injuries? Bradley Chubb, as you mentioned, Nick, Chad Jensen wrote a really good article on milehighhuddle.com that you could find right now, and it's basically explaining Chubb's goal for the year is to play every game. And I respect that. I mean, I think that's a low-hanging fruit. If you want to make fun or whatever on Twitter, that's fine. But I respect that as a man. He's like, look, I get that I've got an injury history. So short-term goals gets you to long-term goals. And it starts with staying healthy for Bradley Chubb. Lawrence Rivera weighing in real quick saying Jerry Jeudy is getting praised from quarterback Russell Wilson. And I've seen a few graphics out there, a few from Pro Football Focus, actually, that supports that, asking which quarterback in the AFC West, I think there was one out there last night or today, which quarterback in the AFC West is going to have the most success with a wide receiver? And Russell Wilson was listed with Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, he has a great chance. I'm really curious to see what he looks like in this offense. There's just too many variables and unknowns. I think if you were asking me right now who the Broncos' number 1 pass catcher will be in this offense, it will be Courtland Sutton. But as far as best in the AFC West, I mean, it's pretty hard not to say, even though he has the worst quarterback, Devontae Adams. And that probably goes to show how I'm not the biggest fan of Hunter Renfrow now. What he does is fine, but it's very niche. And Braylon Edwards, their other wide receiver, I think Devontae Adams is going to get peppered with targets. So he probably ends up being the number 1 guy in the AFC West. But I'd rather have 3 really good guys than 1 really good guy. And I think the Broncos do have maybe 3, maybe 4. KJ Hamler can stay healthy, really good pass catchers.
Yeah, and stay tuned. I think a KJ Hamler piece is in the works. I saw one of our guys grab that today. So everybody go ahead and get to milehighhuddle.com. Nick's got a piece up there as well, talking about, I alluded to earlier, CSU Trey McBride. But speaking of linebackers, Troy Anderson mocked to certain teams. Go look at that. I'm not going to spoil anything, but you can imagine we cover the Broncos, right? So we're trying to find out what we can do for the Broncos, trying to get those positions of need. Brian Dunn weighing in saying, good evening, Nick, Luke, Dylan, and Broncos country. We appreciate you joining MHI. He's Nick Kendall. You can find him on Twitter at Nick Kendall MHH. Yours truly at Luke Patterson LP, and at Scout Kennedy is where you can go ahead and find Scott. So away we go. Let's say hello to a few more of the folks, and then I want to get to the nitty gritty of Baron Browning. EJ's in the house, Nick, saying, what's up? Appreciate you, Broncos country. Let's ride. And how great of a slogan is that, by the way? Yeah. Are you down with the let's ride thing? Because I know I poked fun of Russell Wilson a little for being corny when he was a Seahawk, but now I'm all for it. I don't care.
I mean, he's our corny guy, no issues with it at all. Let's ride. It's great. It's better than Go Hawks. I think the Seahawks actually sued the University of Iowa for the Go Hawks phrase. So I'm a little bit salty about them doing that. So anytime he doesn't say that, I'm okay with it. Fallen Sloth also in the house. Good evening, Broncos country. Hope everyone is having a good day. It's been pretty good so far. Peter Middleton also saying happy Easter to those of you who celebrate. It's Easter Sunday here. So good morning to you, Peter. Good to see you all the way over in Cambodia. Also, let's get it going here. We got DeAndre Weatherspoon in the house. I'm looking forward to this draft. Who isn't, man? The Broncos, they don't have a first-round pick. They don't have their second-round pick. 9 picks in the draft. Thank you. I think it was somebody confirmed that the Broncos do have 2 7th-round picks. Shout out to Pro Football Focus's mock draft simulator because they updated that almost instantaneously to have the Broncos with their 2 7th-round picks. So shout out to them. I don't think Draft Network or Pro Football Network has it up yet. So excited for that 7th-round pick because we're some draft psychopaths. Jeremy Bale's in the house too. Sup, guys? Good to see you, Jeremy. Michael Ronquillo coming in. Good evening, Nick and Luke in Broncos country. Ernie Mays in the house as well. Good to see you, Ernie. And let's get in here, Luke. I'm going to let you introduce so we can get it rolling here. Obviously, Pro Football Focus just released a data piece on the linebackers, the rookie linebackers last year, and the best coverage grades from the linebacker position. And I believe number 1 overall was the Broncos' own Baron Browning, 96th was he the 100th overall pick in the 2021 draft? Either way, great pick for the Broncos. Really good player. Interesting to see what he's going to do this season. But excited for you to introduce this guest and get into all this data stuff.
Yeah, man, my third round guy. I wanted him in the second last year. I was just thrilled that we got him. I was banging the table for him. Training camp, wanted to see him, but some injuries kept him out. But Pro Football Focus dropped a really interesting stat. And I think it's fascinating considering the Broncos are making a little bit of a switch from what the linebacker is getting a lot of praise. Most coverage snaps played without allowing a touchdown last year among rookie defenders is Baron Browning. Now that's 305 snaps. 295 comes in with Micah Parsons, right? Everybody knows that name, the best linebacker in the class last year, arguably one of the best players, period. And then Pete Werner, his former Ohio State teammate, rounds out that top three at 197. So when I see the Broncos are going to start transitioning Baron Browning a little bit to more supporting the edge, I start to get a little concerned because he's already doing so well. So I wrote up a piece. You could find it at milehighhuddle.com. And then I instantly thought, I've got to pick the brain of Pro Football Focus's own. I mean, everybody, we love Pro Football Focus, right, Nick? You and I are constantly writing about it. We're blabbing about it on this show. We're draft geeks, analysts, nerds, whatever you want to call us. So I reached out to one of their own who covered the Broncos for some time. That's Kendall Valenzuela. She's a Pro Football Focus social content producer, and she covered the Broncos here during the Super Bowl runs, Peyton Manning. And like I said, not like I'm jealous or anything like that, but something really cool, Nick, that I found out today. She's actually from Seattle, where you're at right now in Drew Lock country. So we're going to go ahead and bring Kendall on. Kendall, thank you so much for stopping by MHI on Saturday night. We know that you were extremely busy, but I know you've always got your eye on the Broncos. You've got so much work going on over there at PFF, but you've got some love in your heart for the orange and blue, and you never let that go astray.
Yeah, you're right. Hey guys, also hi, nice to see you guys again. Yeah, no, I'm not bitter at all that you guys got Russell Wilson and we have Drew Lock now. You know, it's totally fine. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. You know, everything's good. I was gonna say you guys should be out doing so. You told me Saturday night, and I'm like, what? Only I will be doing nothing on Saturday night, not you guys, because I'm in Cincinnati. Just like Joe Burrow said, there's not much to do. So I was like, I'm free. So excited to be here.
That's awesome. No, yeah, one thing that just shocked the world. First, I got to get your instant raw reaction. Russell Wilson. I was at the Shrine Bowl wearing the hoodie in Las Vegas, where it was basically assured by many per source, right, on Twitter. But a lot of people said the Aaron Rodgers thing is virtually done, especially with Hackett coming here. The day came, Rodgers stayed a Packer. I was super disappointed. And then all of a sudden, Russell Wilson's with the Denver Broncos. I mean, are you kidding me? What was your reaction? We're still in shock.
No, I was sick. I'm still sick. It was just the worst day of my life and I'm not trying to be dramatic about it at all. It was the worst day of my life. Yeah. And then, you know, it was funny because it even got worse with Wagner, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, this day can't get much worse. And then, you know, it was honestly, because I'm from Seattle and really, you know, we don't have the Sonics, right? I always get into this like soliloquy. I'm like, we don't have the Sonics. The Mariners are bad. They're not going to be bad this year, mark my words, but they're bad. And so we didn't have a lot except for the Seahawks. So Russell Wilson gets traded, and I'm like, okay, well, there goes my childhood. And then they seal it with a bow with Bobby Wagner, and I'm like, damn, it's over. You know, I never had that feeling before as like a sports fan, because I pour my heart out to those guys and like they're my team. So like I'd never honestly been through that. And then, but I was honestly excited because he was going to Denver, and I'm like, okay, if he was going to go anywhere, thank God it's with the Broncos. They finally have peace and happiness and joy in their lives. So it was a shock, but I am happy for him and you guys, especially, to be covering, you know, a good quarterback and things like that. So it's fun. It's a good time for you guys.
Yeah, it's like a virtual change overnight. I mean, it's bizarre to me that he's here, another Super Bowl winning quarterback. I mean, first it was Peyton, and I mean, you got to cover those teams, those Broncos teams.
Oh my gosh.
I think you're going to see so many like parallel versions, but Russell Wilson has his own personality. These guys, their own different generation. One player I wanted to ask you about was Jerry Jeudy. All right. Because I think Jerry Jeudy seems to get a lot of love and a lot of hate, some of the cryptic tweets, some of the production, whatever you want to say. I think Jerry Jeudy is about to change his identity here with the Denver Broncos with Russell Wilson. It seems like he's projected with Russell Wilson in just about as many stats, memes, gifs, whatever you want to call it, that are out there. And it's not like people are forgetting Cortland Sutton or Tim Patrick, but what do you expect out of Russell Wilson and Jerry Jeudy? Do you think Jerry Judy's just been waiting for a franchise quarterback like Russ?
Yeah, well, we saw the tweets when they didn't get Rodgers and he was pissed, right? And so that was so funny. And then like a couple hours later, he's like, oh, you know what? Never mind. I'm good. So no, I think anyone that wants to like have their breakout season, I know we've been waiting on that for Jeudy for a little while. He's been good, right? He's been solid, but not like what everyone expected. We wanted him to break out. He got those injuries and things like that. So I think if anyone's going to do it, and it's going to be with Russell Wilson. And that's the most exciting part, right? Because yeah, you have Tim Patrick, you have Cortland Sutton, you have these guys, but Jerry Jeudy is so raw, and he's so young, and he just latches on right to whatever's around him. And so I feel like that too is why sometimes, he lets his Twitter mouth get in the way a little bit, but he does latch on with feelings, right? And Russell Wilson is like a very feelings guy. Like that is who Russ is as a leader. That's who he's corny, and he's now your guys' corny quarterback, but we love him for it anyway. But he wears his heart on his sleeve most times, and sometimes that also gets him in trouble, right? But those two together, I hope to see it, right? Because you do feel bad for guys with so much talent that never get to really go on a run with a good quarterback, and they are stuck with some of those guys that are, middle of the pack, back of the pack kind of quarterbacks. So with him now having Russ, like his game should elevate a lot, and it's super exciting to see.
Yeah, and talking about the Seahawks, it sounds like Russell Wilson did a lot of research moving on from the Seahawks to a new team. Do you have any insight or ideas as to what about the Broncos specifically moving on from Seattle made it such a great spot for him to begin the second part of his career in the NFL?
Yeah, I think, you always want to, we always said, right, even when I was there, they're a quarterback away. And I really do think you can say that for a lot of teams. Like you look at the Colts and things like that, they have a great roster, and a couple other teams, but like Tampa Bay and the Rams, right? We're seeing this trend of one quarterback away teams. Do I think they're as talented as the Rams were when they made that trade? No, probably not. Let's be honest with ourselves, but maybe Tampa Bay Buccaneers style a little bit. Yeah. So I think, I think the GM position is so important, and it has shown that George Payton is a boss, and he knows what he's doing, and he knows what he wants to do to get those guys in the positions where he wants. That's why, like when we're going to talk about Baron Browning, I'm like looking back at that draft class, and I'm like, holy hell, like he did, like that happened. That was a great draft class and things like that. So I think, it was a divorce with the Seahawks. I think it's just as much as Seattle didn't want him there, which is so hard for fans to hear, but you kind of realize, hey, they weren't going to pay him. And you go over to the Broncos, and, he's probably going to get paid there, sooner rather than later. And it was kind of just like, it was a divorce for the Seahawks. They never really utilized him like Russell wanted, right? Russell was the franchise quarterback. Did they utilize him as a franchise quarterback? Not really. No. I mean, not at all. I mean, things changed when in 2017, like Russ threw, league high 34 touchdown passes, but they missed the playoffs, and then Lynch is gone, Chancellor, Averill, everything is changing. And instead, Pete Carroll just said, he replaced the offensive coordinator, Bevel, at the time with Schottenheimer. And then as part of that move, for whatever reason, still had to, they wanted to reestablish that run first identity. And that's just not Russ, right? And you guys know that. That's just not Russ. And I think what's going to be exciting, and why Russ took this opportunity too, is everyone's starting over, right? Hackett, new coaches and stuff. Not to say, I can't even say that even if, the old coaching staff was in place, he would have said no. I think it would have been a little bit harder to get him there, but He just wanted to change the scenery, right? And so you have brand new everything, and that's an opportunity for him. And Russell is a diva, and no one can say against that. You cannot, it's a good thing. It's okay. Yeah. We know it. You have to be a diva to be in that quarterback position. Sure. They're all like that. He's a diva. We love him for it and things like that. But there's going to be a time where they're putting together that offense, and he's going to push back. And I think he's excited about that, though, because he probably didn't get the opportunity like that when he did in Seattle, right? You saw it, and, they did that run first identity, and it was a little bit like, what's going on. But that that Shanahan offense could allow him to move well. And you could see, I'm just so excited. I'm going to keep talking about Russ, but like you can see him go back to his roots, right? Like I just want to see like vintage Russ. I want to see him get like him running around and stuff like that, because with, he wanted to get into that Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, like statuesque in the pocket kind of guy. And I think he just needs to get back to who he was as a quarterback. And I think he saw the best opportunity doing that in Denver with all the weapons, all the new coaches, everything like that. So I think that had to have been the biggest part.
Well, and speaking of biggest part, I don't know if you guys saw the house that Russ just purchased. I think 22 million. Yeah, holy cow. I mean, the guy is definitely coming into the city and coming in with some flair and some style. Thank you guys so much for joining MHI tonight. I'm Luke Patterson, joined with Nick Kendell as always, and special guest from Pro Football Focus, Kendall Valenzuela. You can find her on Twitter at KValenzuela17. She works for Pro Football Focus. She has her hat in so many areas of football. She covered the Broncos here, among other teams here in the Mile High City. And if I understand it, the Nuggets are in a playoffs game right now. Right. Yeah. So that's pretty interesting. And the Avs are right there. So the Mile High City is back and the Broncos are trying to get on top. Something else I wanted to mention too, just because I've got a daughter, that Kendall, Nick, I talk about my kid and my family all the time, but something that Kendall got awarded it really means a lot to me, especially being a girl dad, right? She got a special award of excellence for a women's in sports series that she covered previously with 104.3 The Fan. You could find that on her Twitter page at KValenzuela17. And I just wanted to ask you real quick before we start Baron Browning. I mean, it's so cool to see the evolution of women in pro sports, specifically with the Broncos in the Mile High City here. George Payton has hired a number of females on his staff with scouts, the brass positions. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing to see Allie get her promotion the other day. I mean, it's really, really special to see it this close to home.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. I mean, girl dad, everyone, like we just, it's not the 1950s anymore. We're all in the times, I've never, and I will say when I did that project in Denver with the women in sports, like I had the most incredible outreach of everyone in Denver. I mean, we love Romy. We love all those women that just making a difference. So it's so fun because, and that's again, why I think like, George Payton is just like, Bruce Arians led the way there with how much he added to women on his coaching staff, women in his front office, everything like that. So I think it's just such a cool time. And it's a great like message to send, like no matter like men, women, it's such a great time that you can do whatever you want to do. And I think that's such a cool message that they're sending. So I hope to always, if anyone needs any, guidance, I don't know how great of it I am, but, always reach out.
always reach out. And always, that's something we're always trying to promote. It's just positivity on our show. And you wanted to give me a little pushback on Baron Browning, Kendall. And Nick, you're going to love this because Nick feels that I overvalue the linebacker position. And I do. Okay. I'll just go ahead and say that I do. I fall in love with these linebackers and I want to go get them as fast as I can, just because I feel like we've had such a hole at the linebacker position. So when I see that Pro Football Focus is coming out and saying that the most coverage snaps played without allowing a touchdown last year among rookie defenders is Baron Browning for the linebackers, 3rd round pick out of Ohio State. I mean, come on. You're going to tell me it's time to move him to the edge just because Randy Gregory is recovering in a free agent bum signing? Bradley Chubb has had a banged up injury history. His goal is to play all the games. I mean, I just hope they don't want to move this guy and ruin his career because it's just going so well at inside, at least for the first season.
Yeah. And it's funny because when you brought him up, I remember that tweet because I always, whenever we're in our meetings, it's always funny because we always know what'll get people pumped up and it's always Broncos country when we send tweets.
You got me.
Everything and anything. I'm like, slow day, send a Broncos tweet. They've got us. Like they know what they have and they're so excited. Let's do it. So yeah, that was courtesy of Omari White. He runs our college everything and he's incredible. So when that came out, but I was shocked. Okay. I thought you just wanted to talk about how versatile he is, Swiss Army knife, whatever. And then you said, oh, they're thinking about moving him to the edge. And I'm like, well, if he has those numbers, why? You know what I mean? Sure. Like that was my first reaction, right? Because he is branded as this like Swiss Army knife of the Broncos defense. And a lot of that is because he had to. There were so many injuries yet again, and he had to step in, and he got off to a slow start, but he did okay, right? And I think the challenge for Browning was more like his instincts, which sounds really bad, and I'm really not trying to say that in a bad way, but his instincts kind of got the best of him, and he'll misread a play or two or whatever, but like our grading system, like he had a 40 run defense grade, PFF grade of 40, and at pass rush it was 61.2. Now, granted, those numbers are obviously skewed because he's not getting the snap counts like Micah Parsons is at those other positions. But that was my first reaction. I was like, why would they do that if he's having so much success where he is now? So I don't know. It's interesting because Bradley Chubb, all those guys. So I don't know. I want to get your reactions, honestly, because I was shocked when you told me. I just thought we were gonna like be praising him, and then once you said they might move him, I was like, okay.
Well, and it's just, and Nick, let's get your thoughts on it. But I just hate to see Ohio State, I think, ruin him a little bit with moving him around so much. Like, I get that he's versatile, but like, for crying out loud, Nick mentioned it right before he popped on, we don't want another Justin Holland situation here where he could ideally still be here and be utilized, but no, let's make this guy that's 7 feet tall and inside linebacker, outside linebacker. It's not going to work. Nick, what say you?
Well, talked about it earlier. The Rams defense under Ejiro Evero as the defensive backs coach, but Raheem Morris and Brandon Staley the last 3 years, I think the Rams are top 3 in 6+ defensive back looks. And under Raheem Morris specifically, they like to kind of run a 5-1-5 front, not utilizing the linebacker position as much. So I'm curious if it's more so getting more pathways to the field for Baron Browning, because Josie Jewell might end up being that lone linebacker, the green dot wearer in a lot of defensive looks, especially if they want to be rushing the passer more and be more aggressive with that front. I would guess a 5-man front with the 3 interior guys and 2 edges makes a lot of sense there. But coming back to Baron Browning, I do have a few maybe secret sauce questions that maybe you can't answer, but I'm curious a little bit. I know that I've heard in the past from Mike Renner and Austin Gale that the coverage grades themselves are probably some of the more difficult grades for Pro Football Focus to assess. And for linebackers specifically, I'm curious about how these teams are being graded, or these players are being graded, because in today's NFL, most of the time, if a linebacker is lining up in a one-on-one situation outside the box, they're getting cooked. I mean, just in general, you're not seeing linebackers in that situation. A lot of people, I need a linebacker to stop Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. They don't exist. Those guys do not exist. So I'm curious how the coverage grade actually works for linebackers, because again, there's not many one-on-one situations where they are lined up in man coverage versus the linebacker or wide receiver, tight end, running back.
Yeah, and I will say, like, the guys that grade insane geniuses, machines, football is life guys. So I will say that you do have to take them with a grain of salt, right? Because every play is graded like by the eye. They have what what they're looking at and things like that. So yeah, you have to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, and we put so much on linemen in general. Like we just do, because they're the ones getting the most. I mean, we see them every play, right? So they have such bigger sample sizes as when you go up against, like, when you're looking at tight ends and you're like, okay, Mark Andrews was our highest graded tight end and Jalen Ramsey was our highest graded corner, things like that. So you do take them with a grain of salt, because you're looking at them like Trent Williams was our highest graded player ever in PFF history. And you look at that and you're like, okay, if you start with a good base and you don't fluctuate, I mean, those guys are so like solid to their core with their play. And if they stay consistent in what they're doing, whether like Trent Williams was, you're just going to get those grades. So I think, you do have to take it with a grain of salt. And I think it's interesting because before I came on, I was looking up Browning and things like that. And I found an article from Renner about that, though. Like Mike Renner, amazing PFF college analyst. Go look up his stuff. If you want a college guy, that's your guy with Austin Gale. But he is incredible. But it was interesting because he did point out that Baron Browning, with his grades and stuff like that, he wasn't great, right? I mean, if you're putting it up to PFF grades, anything in the 60s is like a little bit like, yikes, it's not great. But like he did mention his processing, and he did say like his process was going on in front of him, and he did make those mental mistakes. as an off-ball linebacker, right? So that's why Renner in this article says arguably his best role is going to be like coming on the line of scrimmage, because like he flashed as an edge rusher when given the opportunity.
Sure.
So it's an interesting way to look at it, because if you did watch him sometimes, especially at Ohio State and things like that against Trevor Lawrence, there's a play on Twitter where you just see him totally like collapse a little bit mentally. And you saw him a little bit with the Broncos make the same kind of plays a little bit. So you think, okay, if you put him over there, maybe, he had a really good combine when he went. So maybe that changes things. I mean, I remember his combine a little bit, like he had a 4.56 40 or something like that. So he's quick and he can do those things. But I would take the PFF grade with a grain of salt. Not what we put out, but when you're assessing it, his grades are low, but there's so much there for him to do, because he was injured. You got to take that into consideration too. So I just think it is interesting when you think about it, though. If he can't process quick enough there, putting him on the edge could be a way to do it. George might have something up his sleeve. I don't know.
I fell in love with him at the Senior Bowl. So when I saw it, and he was on the edge a lot, to be fair, and to see some of that pass rush, it makes me wonder if I know they love PS2, but I don't need them to turn Baron Browning, try to turn him into Micah Parsons. I don't need that. He doesn't need that. And that's just, I have more respect for George Payton and this coaching staff than that. So maybe that's just a crazy conspiracy theory. But one thing I wanted to get to, and again, we're joining Kendall Valenzuela is joining us from Pro Football Focus. You can find her on Twitter at KValenzuela17. Before we get too much further, Dennis Woods has a question for you, Kendall. And Dennis is a good friend of the show, saying, hello, Kendall. It seems like Russ Wilson's biggest criticism is his height and not using the middle of the field. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, Denver's been known to have very tall quarterbacks, guys. So I don't know if it'll work out. You can send him back. You can send him back if you want. I'll take him back anytime, things like that. But I don't know. I think Russell Wilson, if he's not at his prime, he's at a peak and still at the top of it, coming down, right? He's not low, but he's at that peak and a little bit lower. No one's going to say no to Russell Wilson. He's a franchise quarterback. He's going to be great for I give him, great, probably 4 years. And that's, he's only signed 4-year contracts, and that's probably what's going to come out of Denver, right? It's going to be a 4-year contract. Derek Carr's getting paid for whatever reason. So, Russ is getting paid. So it's going to be like that. But I think Russell Wilson, and I think I said it a little bit earlier, the Shanahan offense, could allow him to move well enough and have that, he plays really well off that run game component, right? And I think what will need to happen is he will need to get back to his roots just a little bit and be more willing to run to make up for what Dennis said, right? To make up for the fact that, he is statuesque sometimes. He wants to be a little diva-ish in the pocket and things like that. But I can't even say there should be a concern with Russ besides the finger thing that happened. And you just don't, you want to make sure that that's okay, which it is. But, now that was his first big injury. I mean, we never had to go through that as a franchise, as a team. So I think that's the only thing. But I don't think there's anything to worry about with Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos, especially that offense.
Neither does Kathy, weighing in saying, I'll take tiny Russ Wilson over tall Brock Osweiler every day and twice on Sunday. And I'm not even going to throw shade at Brock. How about Paxton? We'll go that route.
We'll go with
Paxton.
Because
Brock, he has his place in Broncos history with that Super Bowl 50 team that you got to cover. Absolutely amazing. But Nick, let's kick it over to you real quick, because I've got a final question for Kendall, but I love to just let my gums flap, and Nick, I never give you the time of day on our own show, so fire away.
No, it's all good. I mean, Kendall's got to stick together here, but a few questions just as far as team building of the Broncos coming up draft wise. Going back, obviously PFF, a lot of the advanced analytics such as EPA per play, and based on the usage of this player versus other positions, Russell Wilson really hasn't utilized the tight end as much to the great usage of the position versus his wide receivers. He's much more wide receiver reliant, running game for the short, working the short areas of the field, and the wide receivers in the pass game. And there's a lot of talk about the Broncos maybe targeting a local kid, tight end, by the name of Trey McBride. And personally, I think Trey McBride's a great player. And if you took him at 64, I'd have no issue with that.
Nick hates him.
I don't
Oh,
think
no,
it's the
Nick.
best utilization of resources with Russell Wilson. And it's maybe one of the reasons also the Broncos were okay moving Noah Fant in the first place. There was some talk. I actually have some information that Tim Patrick was thinking he might be getting moved in that first move and didn't end up getting moved. Broncos instead kicking up to Noah Fant. And I'm wondering if some of that is just because with Russell Wilson coming to town, with his lack of usage of the middle of the field, also with Nathaniel Hackett not really using the tight end as much except in the red zone, Robert Tonyan, obviously Mercedes Lewis as a blocker. If the tight end position is devalued in Denver in the system with Russell Wilson to the extent that maybe it's not the best usage of resources to take Trey McBride, not taking anything away from him, he just doesn't offer the dynamic ability, whether that be a freak athlete or a monster blocker that can help dictate opposing defensive personnel. So maybe not as valuable for the Broncos at 64 overall.
Yeah, I mean, and you got to think about, George Payton is a great drafter, right? But you do start at 64. You got no one in the first round, which does, you got to take that into consideration there. So I did look up, and PFF, like, we have an amazing, I call it our draft Bible, but I did have to, I went out and looked up Trey McBride in our PFF, draft top 150, and he was there. I was happy about it, but like Colorado, CSU is an interesting college when you look at tight ends, right? Because like a lot of in college football history, like they focus so much on the tight ends, right? And so it was interesting to look at because like over his span with CSU, right, he accounted for 38.1% of their passing yards, which is insane, right? As a tight end, that's insane. So he's good. Right. But like, you're right. With Russell Wilson, is it necessary? I feel like you guys have a lot more holes that you would want to fill than looking at a tight end, especially. But I don't know. You never know. Right. Like he has pros and cons, like CSU and their level of play. I mean, you never want to fault anyone going into the draft. I mean, they're great athletes. Like Trey McBride is a great athlete, but you look at his level of play and you're like, okay, like who were they playing? Probably not huge teams, right? And he's not going to be win those like one-on-one outside despite like doing so in college, and we saw it a lot. Like he's just like, unfortunately, maybe not, and maybe he can grow into the role. He's like a straight line after the catch player, and there's not much of a dynamic there. And you can see it like on PFF. We have the heat maps and things like that. And you can kind of see he does fit with what, if everyone is saying that Russ is not good, right up the middle of those short plays, then yeah, he fits right there because you look at his heat map and you're like, holy hell, that's what this guy's doing. But is the dynamics there? Maybe, but like he was like, Mike Renner described him as a man among boys, but that's only based off the competition he had. Yeah. So you take that into consideration, like, is this the best play for them, especially with that coveted pick? Their first one is on day 2. So maybe not. I just don't, I don't see it. And I like him. Like he's obviously 10-1, like he's really good, but is that the way to go when you have, other areas that you could probably improve at? Probably not.
They don't. Yeah. I mean, and that's just it. And that's what's weird about it, though, because I think that makes so much sense that they need to go into other areas. But they like Trey McBride. They had scouts at his pro day when I was there. They invited him for a visit. And so did the whole entire AFC West and a bunch of other teams, right? Because he's that good of a player. But when you look at him, he's a yards after the catch guy. He's not a ton of touchdowns when you look at his numbers and things like that. So definitely something to consider as the Broncos are almost just a week away from the draft. Isn't that
crazy?
Insane?
I'm so excited.
Right. It's a special time of year. And a special guy, one of our supporters, a friend of the show, Peter Middleton, weighing in with a great question, saying, Kendall, why is he lower than his peak? I'm assuming Russell Wilson, Peter. Why can't Russell do better with a better offensive line and more attacking threats?
I think he can. I just think when you're looking at his career, right, you just have to, I'm looking at it from, not unfortunately, but from a PFF standpoint.
From a bitter Seattle fans standpoint as well. I think I'm going to make sure that is known here.
I do take a little bit of Seattle bitterness with it. But like at PFF, like we are so stats heavy, we're so stats driven. And I know some people don't like that. And I totally understand. Because it's sometimes tough to not think with your heart like I do and think with your head and things like that. And we just, we look at Russ and I think like I said, he could be at his peak and maybe just a little down, like maybe just, not catching speed going down, but he's still up there. And that's why I think like attacking a tight end position for him is not the way to go. It's the offensive line. And to get him, I've said it the whole show, to get him back to that core of who he is, I think that's when he played his best. And if he gets back to his core and to what he was peak Seattle, then yeah, you're right. Like you can keep us like going up with Russell Wilson if he trusts what's happening around him. The thing with Seattle is I'm taking it as there wasn't trust there. I mean, they established that run first defense and they're the run first offense. And it was like that to him is a slap in the face because he should have been treated as a franchise quarterback. And in my opinion, he wasn't. And the thing with Denver is I know for a fact with you guys, with everyone I keep reading, everything I keep seeing from you guys and everyone is like, they're not going to do that. Like they have already said like, yeah, we're going to pay him in due time. And that's probably going to come up. And, I think that just the level of trust that he's going to have there. And if they get him back to his core and the thing is too, he gets to build this offense with everyone there. And he's going to have pushback on that with Hackett and things like that, but he's in it from the ground floor. And with Seattle, it wasn't like that. So you're right. Like you could see him go to a new level that maybe I'm not even thinking he could go to because I saw how they utilized him in Seattle. And to me that put him on a down, like just a little bit of a downward slope, just a little bit.
Well, and you're right. And you mentioned it earlier. I mean, he is coming back from injury with a finger issue. And I don't think any of us are anticipating it's, is going to stop him from having further success. But it's something that you need to be concerned about. And he is an aging quarterback. And we're seeing these quarterbacks play well into, their latter years, if you will, with Tom Brady coming back and everything else that Aaron Rodgers is doing. And Kathy, by the way, we really appreciate your support saying you guys are having a great interview. Please have Kendall back again. And final question for me, because Kendall's been so gracious and over her time with us on Saturday night.
We live in Cincinnati, folks. There's this is what we're doing here. No offense to anyone from Cincinnati, but
hey, in Cincinnati, you know what? They got a lot of exciting things going on in terms of their football teams right now. I mean, Uncle Joey, how can you not love Joe Burrow? The final one for me, and I got to ask you because everyone knows Twitter's the most important thing ever, and it always gets us into a little bit of trouble, but this is one that I liked. Ed McCaffrey, former Broncos wide receiver, last week, sticking up for his former head coach, Mike Shanahan, and kind of putting the Pro Football Hall of Fame on blast, asking why Mike Shanahan is not in the Hall of Fame. Now, Mike Shanahan, as you know, won back-to-back Super Bowls here in 1997 and 1998. Also has an additional ring as offensive coordinator with the San Francisco 49ers. Why isn't Mike Shanahan in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Because I wrote a piece about it on milehighhuddle.com, and I'm just scratching my head, just like Eddie Mack. I don't get it. You're seeing Dick Vermeil go in this year, but Mike Shanahan's not?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm with you. That's the $1 million question. If you have the answer, you guys can DM me. I'll put some money on it. We'll go to the offshore books. I'll be like, oh, he's coming up. Like, we're good. He's next. But no, I agree. I feel like that's just like, it's almost too obvious. And I don't know, maybe he pissed some people off. I'm kidding. I'm sure he didn't. But like, what else is there, right? Because you do look at Dick, who got it last year. And I think Eric Dalala, I think that's how you say it, like put out the wins and stuff like that. And everything he put them up together. And it's like, like Mike Shanahan's better. Like he had a better career win percentage. He had more career wins. He had 2 Super Bowl wins and appearances, and he has a better playoff win percentage. So you're looking at that and you're like, I don't know. I don't know the answer. Again, if you guys figure it out before me, please let me know, because it is confusing, because I thought it was going to happen because they changed the rules, right? They changed like how, a coach now doesn't have to fight with players to get in. And so when that happened, I was like, the first person everyone thought of was Shanny. And so I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, perfect. You don't have to, it's tough when you go against players because, you have that limit there. But now one coach goes and you're kind of looking, you're like, what the hell? So I have no idea. I don't know if he pissed anyone off. We can write letters. I mean, I don't get it.
I know it.
And I don't know what they're waiting for. There's nothing to wait for.
Well, and Nick, we talk about it all the time on MHI. I mean, his coaching tree, we're watching it today in the NFL. I mean, you look at these teams that are constantly in the postseason, NFC, AFC championships, Super Bowls. They've all got their roots back from Mike Shanahan / Gary Kubiak, pupil. And then, of course, there's Kyle out there in San Francisco. But tons of love for Mike Shanahan, just like tons of love for Kendall Valenzuela, who has been very kind with her Saturday night time with us here on MHI with Luke and Nick. Again, you could find Kendall at KValenzuela17 on Twitter. She works for Pro Football Focus, has her hands in a lot of exciting things. And I think you were mentioning some podcasts that you have coming up too, right, Kendall?
We're degenerate gamblers here. So if anyone wants to be a degenerate gambler with me, I just have an awesome podcast with an awesome guy, Ben Brown. We just do it weekly right now, but during the season is like our bread and butter. We give out everything you need to know. So we love the podcast. PFF Betting Pod is what we do once a week now. So would love to get any Broncos fans. Like we talk about the Broncos a lot because we're like win total over. We're like Super Bowl appearance, maybe. No, we're high on them. So we have that going on, and the sale. We have a PFF sale going on. So if you guys seriously, I'm not giving you a sales pitch, but like everything we talked about tonight is literally all at PFF. And so we've got a 50% off sale going on right now, which is like crazy, super good deal. So go to our website. You can find like the draft Bible, everything coming up. You can be the talk of the party at your, dinner party with your friends. You'll know it all. You'll know it all in a week.
You know what some of those guys, those friends of yours in Denver got me hooked on, specifically like B-Stoke and Cecil, prop bets. Prop bets. I'm all up in the prop bets now and everything like that. Nick's
you can't do anything Stokely does, just run the other way. It's just horrible.
I know.
It's horrible.
I know. He got me on the prop bets, and I refuse to talk to Zach about any of it. But again, you guys, Kendall, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We hope to see you maybe a little later down the road, and go Broncos. We're really excited. We're really excited for this season and can't wait to see what you guys are cooking up for us here at Pro Football Focus.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, guys. Enjoy Russ. Seriously, you guys deserve nothing less than a franchise quarterback like that. So have fun. I hope to be back soon.
Awesome, Kendall. Can't wait to see what you're working on.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Be good.
Thank you so much.
That was Kendall Valenzuela of Pro Football Focus. Again, you can find Kendall on Twitter at KValenzuela17. Peter Middleton weighing in saying 9 picks, 2 7th rounders. Why are so many mock draft simulators and websites not realizing it and still saying 8?
I mean, it's a 7th round pick. It's a late pick, and a lot of those teams don't update those things consistently. I mean, we had debates for a long time of what 5th round pick did the Broncos send to the Seahawks. I don't know. It was just I think it was who I absolutely love, Jordan Reed over at ESPN, a rising star over there. He had the Broncos having 2 5th round picks in his recent 7th round pick. Mistake. I think 152 to the Seahawks now. So those picks are going to be a little bit of mistakes here and there. Hopefully they get updated soon. But the Broncos currently have 9 picks. George Payton rectified. He kept saying 9. Turns out he's right. And I think the Broncos right now only have 4 picks in 2023. So maybe some of those 9 need to start helping you accumulate some 2023 draft capital as well.
Everybody makes mistakes except George Payton. At least that's the way it's been so far. I mean, so he's going to, right?
Yeah.
Sooner or later. And God dang it. We know he wanted Spencer Brown, damn it. And we're going to talk about it every week because Nick, you talk about offensive tackle too. And rightfully so. We need some more offensive tackles in waiting, developing. You still need a long-term right tackle solution. Garrett Bowles is definitely aging. He's in his prime right now. I can't wait to see. I love what he's up there saying, nobody's going to touch Russ. I love it, man. Absolutely love it. Travis Weber coming in here. Travis, a good friend of ours. We really appreciate you joining in MHI on your Saturday night, Travis. I just hope the new ownership will interfere with the culture shock the Broncos are taking on. And Travis, I absolutely love this. Nick, I wrote a little piece on milehighhuddle.com talking about how bids were being placed or expected to be placed starting last Friday for Broncos ownership. Rob Walton, obviously reported leader in the clubhouse. What do you make of the ownership? Are you hearing anything? What your general opinion? Is it going to go quick? Is it going to drag on a little bit? When do you think the Broncos are going to have their ownership sale wrapped up?
It's probably going to be, we're going to have some idea at some point in the summer what's going to happen. And I think that if Walton is involved, nobody else is going to beat him out. The way the trust is set up, it has to go to the highest bidder as long as the NFL teams would approve it. And the NFL teams would approve it. And I think Walton's like 4 times as rich as anybody else, any other ownership in the NFL. So if he wants it, he's going to get it. And, say what you will about Walmart. I know the last time we were talking about this, there were some people pretty upset about the idea of a Walmart owner coming in here. But again, anybody with that much money probably stepped on some heads on the way to the top. So going to have some.
And yeah, I agree with that. And here's the thing too, and something I tried to write in my article on milehighhuddle.com, it was a little awkward for me, if I'm going to be honest, Nick, because I don't really generally like to write journalistic pieces like this, but we don't know a lot about Robert Walton. So I did some digging in. I know I poked fun the other day saying he's got a car collection. Well, that car collection is worth $226 million. They were like averaging out based on how many cars he had. Each one was worth approximately $800,000, which is over the minimum salary for a veteran NFL player. So, I mean, the guy has deep pockets. That's what matters, folks, in the NFL. I know we want them all to be Boy Scouts, and that's not to say he is or isn't, but it's time for an ownership. It's time for new blood. It's time for something. And with that, you're going to get Russell Wilson paid. Also wrote about that because Derek Carr, as Kendall kind of poked fun at the Raiders too, which I absolutely love because they're the Raiders. They paid Derek Carr, but he's not, anywhere making Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes money or anything like that. But we talked about it, Nick. Russell Wilson's going to get paid. And I would love it if this sale happened so fast that Rob's telling GM George Payton right now, look, I'm the richest guy here. All right. Don't worry about paying Russ. I got it. And let's move ahead because you're going to get a new stadium. You're going to get Russ locked down and you're going to get a whole hell of a lot with a billionaire. It's just freaky to say, man.
Yeah. I mean, I guess don't just sign the check immediately because there's salary cap implications that are going to matter for the Broncos of building a team around Russell Wilson. But as far as putting all the money in escrow and paying him the huge guaranteed money up front, I would be totally fine with paying him and I hope he would do this, but Russell Wilson's not going anywhere. I have no issue being married or tied to him, paying him a bigger guaranteed contract if it means less against the salary cap APY. Now, you do lose a little bit of flexibility as far as year to year, restructure the contract. That's just guarantees being kicked up later in the deal.
He's not going to do it.
Well, I mean, players don't think have a choice on the restructured contracts. It's just moving money around. It's an accounting thing in the end, but you lose that flexibility, but that doesn't really matter if you can get a lower average per year against the cap. So hopefully they do that. And with a rich owner, it's not just obviously paying guys, putting them in furlough, in escrow, but it's also, new training facilities, whatever these guys need, best technology. Something I wish we could have asked Kendall as well. We thank you so much to her for spending so much time, but talking about the grading system at PFF, I'm ready for the revolution of GPS data. How soon is that coming down the tracks, PFF? We're waiting on
USFL, baby. Did you see it, Nick?
I did see that. And I also know that the Senior Bowl used Zebra technologies to register explosive movements, change of direction, spatial data. I mean, instead of some guy, a bunch of different dudes and gals grading a player if they had a good coverage grade or not, why not look at the distance between the player and the ball carrier?
I'll tell you why.
Who's the best on that.
I have the answer, and it's the same answer that I would give for baseball with what? Did they figure out the strike zone? You're a baseball guy. I don't know, or whatever the problem was for years there and the digital technology of moving the change. Why? Yeah. Gambling.
Yeah.
Gambling is why. All right. Not everything is always as you think it is. Not everything's so square in the good old US of A of professional sports. And that's just my crazy thought. I would love to hear what Kendall and Carl. We got to get like a 4 show here going with Carl and Kendall, because Carl obviously gets some definitely good advice on some bets and stuff like that too. But man, one thing I'm curious too, just thinking about being a gambling degenerate, and I'm not. I really don't gamble that much, only in the NFL, and I play for like nothing. So if I win $3, I'm pumped on like a $1 bet or something like that. But it's just one of those things where what's the over-under going to look like? What are the points, the favorites, the underdogs? What's it going to look like in the AFC West games? Because I feel like it's going to be really, really close.
The over-under on the Broncos wins this season or just games in general?
When AFC West teams are playing each other, interdivisional games. So when you look at the over-unders, when you look at the spread, you're not going to see the same lopsided kind of stuff that we've seen as of late, because this is the best division of professional football. Am I right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm curious to see how it all shakes out. And hopefully, the way it sets up right now, the Broncos have a chance to have the best defense in the division. I know that you need good offense and a franchise quarterback to contend in today's NFL. The math is totally different. It's a have or have not quarterback. Broncos entered the have quarterback now. Maybe the difference maker in them in the entire AFC West is whoever can have that best defense. And the Broncos are going to have a chance at that this season. Obviously, moving on from Vic Fangio, I would expect the defense to regress a little bit. But still, should be right up there. Chiefs defense doesn't look great on paper. I really don't think the Raiders have a good back seven. And the Chargers, while I think they're the ones that have the best chance to compete with the Broncos for the best defense in the division, they were bad last year at stopping the run. A lot of injury-prone pieces as well. I mean, Joey Bosa, Derwin James, Khalil Mack, some guys that have some injury history. And just because they threw money at it this offseason doesn't mean it's going to be an immediate turnaround. Now, if anything can turn around quickly, if you throw money at it, it is the defense. We've seen that over the past few seasons. Bengals went from a bottom 5 defense to top 10 this last year. Raiders went from bottom 3 to middle of the pack because they threw money at it. So that is an avenue to make your defense much better quickly, but have to see it first. So it will be really interesting. Andrew Baker coming in saying, "Sup, Nick, Luke, and Scott, and my brethren." Good to see you, Andrew Baker. Thank you so much. I know enough to know that nobody knows how these draft players shake out in the NFL. So it's up to George Payton. We trust. I think we got to give him a little bit more credit than that because it's not pure chaos. You know, you're not seeing 7th round picks hitting like 1st round picks. There is some method to the madness. Typically, the good players go first. It's just there are no guarantees. There will still be busts. These are humans, and there are injuries that happened, personality stuff, you know, guys just not clicking, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at where players are drafted, there's still a pretty strong correlation to the earlier guys are more likely to hit than the later guys.
Yeah, but let's talk about the mid guys. I would give a little push there because I think we all know, right? It's no secret the mid rounds is where you make your bread and butter in the NFL. It's just determining whether or not that premium round pick, which ends at the end of bottom of round 3, that 3 through 4 through 5, then we're splitting hairs. One thing, and Andrew, by the way, I think I saw Javonte Williams jersey he was wearing there. That's my guy, Pookie, my guy. That's so cool to see guys giving so much love to Javonte Williams. And that's another thing, Nick, real quick as we wrap up the show. Seeing some jerseys around that I'm not used to seeing, you know, like it's cool to see Pat Surtain's jersey. Like, you know, he's a staple, but it's still number 2. You know, it's kind of weird. It's not traditionally a Broncos number that I associate with another player. So I'm still trying to get used to it, but you see number 3, they're everywhere. I'm sure the Easter Bunny might even be dropping off some number 3s for some young Broncos country kids, maybe tomorrow morning. If you had a chance right now and the NFL, whoever sent you a gift card that says you're going to buy a Bronco jersey, what jersey would you buy? It could be a current player, a former player. Would it be the home, the away? What color scheme? Because I got to be honest, I'm thinking it's time to buy my kid a Russell Wilson jersey, but there's so many different variations of them and they all look so freaking cool.
Definitely Russell Wilson. That's the jersey to go with. That's the prime one right now. The number 3 looks good.
Orange?
The thing is, there might be a new uniform coming down the tracks with new ownership. And maybe it would make sense to wait for a Russell Wilson or a Patrick Surtain jersey if there's a new fresh dig coming out, new digs that are coming out. So maybe it's a little bit smarter to go with a historical player for now, because if Russell Wilson, I don't know if I want to buy a color rush jersey and then a year from now you have a brand new spanking jersey that I'd rather be rocking the new digs.
Do you like the color rush jerseys though?
I personally do. I like the stripe on the shoulder. I don't really like the side swoosh on the pants for the current jersey. I also don't really like the navy blues as well. Every other team in the NFL wears navy blue. Oh, they won the Super Bowl in them. 0% sentimentality here, guys. Sorry.
No, man, those curses. I'm telling you, Nick, they exist. They're totally Mr. Scientist, right? There's totally curse. I'm going to convert you to alchemy, my friend, and you'll love it. It's a hybrid of both. No, but yeah, you're exactly right, man. New ownership. What else could they bring? New jerseys. That's exciting. This is an exciting time. This is a rebirth of a team, if you will. I absolutely love it. And John Clay weighing in. John Clay eventing with a $2 super. Appreciate you, John, saying I love the white Wilson jersey. And that would look good. I've never liked the away jersey. I don't know why, man. I don't think I have any orange ones. My kids have them, or my wife has an Eddie Mack jersey that I got when I was a kid. But the throwbacks, right? You see Steve Atwater's out there, Terrell Davis is out there. It's cool though to see Broncos country bringing their orange back out. But Nick, last thing on the way out, the draft hats are getting worse every year for the Denver Broncos, in my opinion. What do you think about the draft hats as we prepare to launch our very own Mile High Huddle draft coverage here in just over a week? What do you think of the Broncos draft release hat?
Not very good.
Horrible.
Bummers. Yeah, major bummer. Waiting for something better. I'm just, again, bring back the old D or some sort of iteration of it, and let's roll with it. I'm not a big fan of the rooster looking horse head as much. I mean, it's still the Broncos, so I love them, but we can be better. And speaking of being better, our pal coming in saying bring back the Mile High salute. Absolutely. Yeah. Travis Weber also coming in saying great show tonight, guys. Have a good night and enjoy your Easter tomorrow. Go Broncos.
Thank you.
So, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Travis. Also, we got Heath Holmes coming in, say hello to MHH. Love y'all's contents and football minds. Well, thank you so much, Heath. That's really nice of you to say. And Kathy also agreeing with us. The draft hats are ugly.
They're horrible.
Yeah.
They're horrible. Great. They're horrible. And speaking of the draft, I think did we read that Chad's going to Vegas this year to cover the draft? Is that what I think? Dude, Chad Jensen, ladies and gentlemen. You can find him at Chad Jensen on Twitter, I think, or at Chad Jensen MHH, Huddle Up's own. So stay tuned. I want to tease that, man, because Chad's always working hard. You can find him and Zach tomorrow on Huddle Up for some Easter coverage, I believe. And then Nick will be right back. I know you did back-to-back shows. I saw you last night on Friday night with Eric Trickle on Dove Valley Deep Divers. So you'll be back. A short weekend for you on Monday morning for Broncos for Breakfast with Scott Kennedy at Scout Kennedy. You can find Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. Yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. Guys, I implore all of you to head on over to milehighhuddle.com right now, where Nick has some articles up. I've got some articles up. We've got tons of content from all of our guys all over the different pods. Chad Jensen, Zach Kelberman, Lance Sanderson has some scouting profile articles up, if I memory serves, just before we came on the show. And Gary Leeds Palmer coming in here with a lovely compliment. Thanks, guys. Great pod. Gary, thank you for joining us, and the rest of Broncos country too, because this was a really, really sharp show. It was awesome to have Kendall on and pick her brain. It's awesome when we can get some guests on from a different level, like she understands Broncos country, but we were trying to look at things, and I know you try to look at things as objectively as we can, but sometimes it's cool to get a national perspective view. And I think Kendall definitely brought the house down with a lot of her great insight.
Yeah, and that's something I really appreciate. Shout out to her again. Make sure you guys are following her on Twitter and her content, and she dropped that pod there. I'm not much of a gambler as far as that goes, but still good content, and appreciate her coming on. And that's something I really try to guard against too. Sometimes I feel like we can get specifically in these kind of realms a little too, echo chamber going on. Oh, the Broncos, man, they're going to be great this season. Drew Lock, they're going to build the play action offense for him, and he's going to take that 3rd-year leap, blah, blah, blah. Now let's hear what the national people are saying, because they have less bias covering these teams, a little bit more objectivity, what we want to go for here. I know there are some realms that are more, if you question anything, then you are an enemy of the state. And I'm not about that. I'd rather keep it real. I've never been into much of the trash talking. I'm going to tell it like it is. I prefer that.
And Nick, that's why I like looking at your articles, and I hope it's the same with you, man, because we look at all of our, not just favorites, but the draft experts that we respect. There are some folks out there I'm not necessarily fond of on the national level, but I respect their work. And it's cool when we're writing up who they're mocking here. Chad Ryder, you love him. I love him. You just wrote a piece on him. Mel Kiper, Todd McShay. We know all these names, but like you said, man, it's important for Broncos country to get as many resources as you can. And that's something that we try to provide here at Mile High Huddle.
Yeah, breaking out of that echo chamber, unless you're just hanging out in here, then stay in. Let's echo it up in here. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Shout out again to Kendall for coming on and joining us. Scott working in the background there. Make sure you're following Luke and I on Twitter. Luke is at Luke Patterson LP. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. We will see you guys again tomorrow night for an episode of the Huddle Up podcast with Chad and Zach. You guys choose kindness, choose compassion. Have a great rest of your weekend. Luke, what do you got the rest of the night?
Oh man, the rest of the night I got Easter plans, man. Something tells me I got to get ready for the Easter bunny to come, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to be doing that, and then I'm going to enjoy a lovely hike with my parents tomorrow morning.
Hey.
And then my folks, we live in a beautiful spot right here, so we try to take as much advantage as we can, but it's beautiful because all of the deer and the elk right now have their fawns out and their calves, and it's just beautiful. The bears have just woken up, so you might get a sighting of one of them and they get really spooked and run right up the tree. But it's just beautiful to be out in nature. So I'm going to unplug tomorrow and just spend tomorrow in nature with my family. And mom's is cooking up a feast, right? I've been running on the elliptical, trying to get back into some more shape. And now she's going to totally ruin it all on Sunday. But how about you, man? What's the rest of your weekend look like?
I tried to convince some friends to go do Mailbox Peak with me tomorrow, which is kind of a signature peak about an hour out of Seattle. It's 8 miles and 4,000 feet of elevation gain, which is a pretty good hike. It's pretty much straight up there at the beginning part of the loop. But my friend said, I'm not really feeling that for tomorrow. So we're going to go do a hike as well for an overlook over the Puget Sound closer to Bellingham watching, which will be beautiful. Looks like it's going to be nice weather tomorrow.
Was that first hike like Manitou Springs-esque, like where it's just like a straight vertical kind of no, I'm not sure after having a couple of beers with the gentleman if I would Sunday morning. You're hardcore. Would Summit be able to do that one with you? Do you take Summit absolutely everywhere with your hikes?
Not everywhere because he's not allowed in the national parks on the trails there, but in the national forest and whatnot. He did it with me on my birthday when I turned 30 this year. And the beginning of the hike, it starts at 8,300 feet, and the summit is at just two and a half miles later at about 5,000 feet. So it's a pretty darn good climb. A lot of fun. Pretty little scary going up too. It's very vertical, but a lot of fun. We're gonna get on out of here. Have a good hike tomorrow, Luke. Happy Easter. Happy Easter,
thanks, buddy. Yeah, you too.
Happy Easter. And go Broncos. We'll see you later. Have a good one.
Go Broncos.